I am here to tell you about a super fun book. The book that I picked is called The Witches. This is by Roald Dahl, and he is one of my favorite authors because he keeps you turning the page after page after page. The best thing about this book is that it has so many unexpected twists and turns. We start off with a young boy who unfortunately lost his parents and goes to live with his grandmother. Well, his grandmother happens to be an expert on witches, and she gives her grandson some very good pointers on how to spot a witch. Now, a witch could be anybody. You never know if you're finding a witch. They're always women. They usually have on gloves to hide their long claws. They wear wigs to hide their gross scalps. They have blue spit in their mouth and they can smell you a mile away. Actually, the most important thing for a child to do, because that's witches hunt or children, the best thing for a child to do is to be dirty, because when you are nice and clean and you smell like a good child, they can smell you for miles and they are going to come get you. Well, Grandma sat young boy down and told him quite a few stories about people who have disappeared. Needless to say, the young boy in our story at first did not really believe his grandma, but as she continued to talk and talk, he realized that she was telling the truth. Well, Grandma got very sick, and they were going to go on this grand vacation. But because she got so sick, they couldn't. So they decided to go to this tiny little town in the south of England at a hotel and just have a very laid-back vacation. And because the young boy was so disappointed that they did not go on the fancy vacation, Grandma bought him 2 little mice. Well, the hotel didn't really like that he had the mice, and he kept trying to train the mice, and so he had to hide. So he decided to go to this conference room. There was nobody there. It was perfect. There was a screen in the back. So he hid there to train his mice. Well, what should happen? But in should walk a huge group of women. And they're all very nice, and they're talking about each other, and they're there for the counsel on how to help children. So the little boy didn't think anything of it, and he kept there behind the screen training his mice. Well, they ended up closing the doors and locking them so nobody else could come in. And the next thing this boy knows, these women are taking off their wigs, they're taking off their gloves, they're taking off their shoes, because witches have no toes, and shoes really hurt their feet. And he realizes he is in a meeting filled with over 200 witches, and to top it off, the Grand High Witch herself, the witch over all over other witches in the whole world, is there at the front of the room. Well, luckily, the little boy had not bathed in a while. He had been heeding his grandmother's advice, and he was able to stay back there for quite some time. He sat and witnessed the entire meeting, which is something no human had ever been able to do, much less a child, because that's what witches want more than anything, our children. So he was back there training his mice, didn't think anything of it until the very end of the meeting, when one of the witches caught a whiff of dog droppings, because to a witch, that's what a child smells like. And they found this little boy, and they brought him to the front, and they had come up with a whole scheme on how to get rid of all the children in the world. And what the scheme did, it turned all the children into mice. So they pull this little boy up to the front just to see if their potion works, and they turn him into a mouse. If you want to find out what happened to this young boy and whether or not he stays a mouse or manages to turn back into a boy, and does he defeat these witches, I don't know. I guess you'll just have to read the book. It is an amazing book. It is a fantasy book, and you'll be able to read it in no time because you won't be able to put it down. So, go pick out The Witches by Roald Dahl and get reading. Thank you.